Did you notice last week that I was so excited about Thunder Warrior that I forgot to use the theme song? Anyway, this is Sam. Welcome back to BNS About Movies. I'm recording this with an upper respiratory infection, so if I sound as if I'm a little breathless, maybe I'm just excited about 1971's If Footmen Tire You, What Will Horses Do? Oh man, I know this movie and I found this movie from Negativland's song, Christianity is Stupid. And one of the film's title references Jeremiah 12:5. If you have run with footmen and they have tired you out, then how can you compete with horses? If you fall down in a land of peace, how will you do it in the thicket of the Jordan? The film's director, Ron Ormond, did not start his career making religious movies. No, instead, his world of entertainment started in vaudeville, doing magic, before making B-picture westerns and exploitation films such as Mesa of Lost Women, Untamed Mistress, Teenage Bride, aka Please Don't Touch Me, and 40 Acre Feud, which starred George Jones. After that, he spent most of the 50s writing books with Ormond McGill, where he got his stage name from, about magic and psychic belief. Books such as Religious Mysteries of the Orient, Into the Strange Unknown, The Art of Meditation, and The Magical Pendulum of the Orient. Well, it gets a little stranger. By the 60s, Ormond had moved on to producing roller derby for Leo Seltzer and making movies like The Girl from Tobacco Road with cowboy star Tex Ritter and The Monster and the Stripper, an inordinately strange film that plays like a variety show that's packed with exotic dancers, contortionists, rockabilly, and a swamp monster played by musician Sleepy LaBeef that was filmed in the studio of a Methodist church with exteriors shot on location in Okefenokee Swamp. Then, Ormond crashed a single-engine plane near Nashville and had a Paul on the road to Damascus moment. Well, actually, several plane crashes before he had that moment. He saw a way that instead of making his movies play in drive-ins for horny teens, he'd make movies that can convert people to the will of God. This movie proves that he's lost none of his exploitation edge. After all, his son's godfather was Bela Lugosi. But now Ormond was woke to the teachings of one Estes Perkel, who was convinced that America would face its greatest danger ever, the danger of communism.
Just a few weeks ago, I went to the school that's nearest to the house where I live. I got all the readers from the first to the sixth grade, and I found out as I read 2,500 pages, not one story based on the Bible, not one story with a moral or character teaching to it. The stories today in the schoolroom are stories that are some Jack and the Beanstalk stuff. Something of the men of Mars going to invade this country. Some Frankenstein monsters to terrorize your children in the night. The school system, ladies and gentlemen, are footmen running loose against your children and my children today. Not only that, in my father's day, children were taught to be patriotic, to love their country, to stand for the United States of America. Not in the schoolroom today. They are taught that the United Nations is more important than the United States. They are taught patriotism toward a one world government. Not only that, the school children are not teaching your boys and girls today integrity and honesty and work as the means by which to make a living in society. Always, the squirrel has been considered as an animal very industrious, an animal that gathered his nuts in the summertime in order that in the wintertime he'd have some nuts when the snow was on the ground. But in 1956, in a first-grade reader entitled Our New Friends, published by Scott Forsman and Company, notice the date, 1956, this version of the squirrel story appeared. In this story, the squirrel played all summer long, and when the first snow of winter fell, he suddenly realized he didn't have any nuts. So he said, what can I do? Then he remembered that a little boy by the name of Bobby, who lived in a white house on the hill, had visited his nut tree that summer and had gotten some of his nuts. He went to the White House on the hill, gave a squirrel call, the door opened, and out rolled a nut. The moral to that story is, if you want something, go to the White House on the hill and ask for it. Ladies and gentlemen, 11 years later, which would have been last summer, these first-grade boys and girls in 1956 did that in America. and they said, "You'll give it to us or we'll burn your country down." Where'd they learn it? Back in the school books in 1956. What am I saying? The school today in its teaching is not for God. It's running against the things you're trying to teach your children about God. It's evolution from beginning to end. But not only the school system, the television programs are running after your children today. They're dead set in outrunning you, bringing your children down to a character that was not taught by you and which you do not want them to have. I wonder how many of your boys and girls have as a major hero the man named Tarzan on television. He's the hero of most boys and girls. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, Tarzan is 5'6", undressed. He doesn't have much clothes on, and every boy and girl feels to be a hero, they got to pull their clothes off.
In the follow-up to this film, The Burning Hell, Perkle would speak to the horrors of the afterlife, while Orman mashed him with the kind of imagery that could only come from a junk movie pioneer, a man who had nearly smashed his plane into the unforgiving earth and lived. He crashed another plane in 1970 after finishing The Monster and the Stripper. That was the second sign from God to tell Orman to get on board. Because after all, Perkle would preach hellfire and brimstone like this: hell is forever. 10,000 years from now, every sinner will still be in hell. 100,000 years from now, every sinner will still be in hell. 1 million years from now, every sinner will still be in hell. 100 million years from now, every sinner will be in hell. 1 billion years from now, the inhabitants of hell will still be sinning, cursing, crying, swearing, and in a pain that no mortal man has to experience now. But let's move on and discuss the movie that they put together, If Footmen Tire You, What Will Horses Do? The America of Estes Perkle is made up of Southern accents and good Christian folks who are about to be destroyed by communists. And those communists have even worse Southern accents. They force people to renounce their faith, accept Castro as their personal savior, and shoot their own mothers when they're not shoving bamboo sticks into children's brains through their ears, making those kids puke all over the place. This entire sequence is shown up close and in person as Christians are shot, stabbed, hung, tortured, and murdered. The children are made to hang them, drop them onto spikes. And it'd be frightening if it wasn't so over the top. See, I've always had this theory that the hardest core Christians have way better satanic imagery than most Satanists. For proof, I would say that this movie and the Jack Chick track, The Beast, really have the edge when it comes to end of the world satanic imagery. This movie was played in churches and in tent revivals, where at the end there'd be an altar call. Supposedly, this movie saved 1 million souls, which in the box office of Ron Orman after his conversion was all he was looking for. Perkle promised that hundreds of dead bodies were going to litter the streets of our towns and tens of millions of Americans would be killed by communists within the next 24 months. He also found the time to shame a good Christian girl who had witnessed, but had the temerity to wear a microskirt while doing so. And he also says things like, "Are you aware that less than 60 years ago, there was not one communist in the world? For today, communism controls 1 billion, 100 million people?" I grew up Catholic, and maybe that changed me beyond belief and warped me, but I really am glad that I never attended any tent revivals growing up. I would have ended speaking in tongues, handling snakes, drinking poison, and saving people through the magic of psychic surgery. This movie messes with my mind on a level that Jodorowsky could only dream of. This is a movie where communist machine gun Baptists into giant unmarked graves as the camera lordly moves amongst the carnage, and a small boy says, "Where's my mommy? Where's my daddy?" before another communist monster with an accent like Dracula demands that the kids step all over a picture of Jesus, which leads to that cherubic child getting beheaded rather than turn his back on Christ. He did a good job there. And his head tumbles to the ground in dramatic slow motion while a member of audience within the audience of the church screams and gives up her hippie ways and finds her way back to the Lord while the ghost of her mother cries from an open casket. And this isn't just the best religious movie I've ever seen. It might be the best movie that I've ever seen. I recommend this movie to everyone. To get the best possible quality version of it, I would recommend the limited edition Indicator box set from Hollywood to Heaven, the lost and saved films of the Orman family, and you get almost everything. It's really incredible. There's 13 films, extra features, art cards, a 100-page book by Jimmy McDonough, and it's just filled with, for people obsessed with the Ormans, such as me, I know a few other of my friends are, it's pretty great. I would definitely recommend all of his movies, but specifically his post-religious conversion movies. If you're only going to watch one, though, go with If Footmen Tire You, What Will Horses Do? Thanks for listening to the show. This is Sam, and I hope that you have your own personal conversion moment after hearing it. And come to the site, bnsaboutmovies.com, and you can reach out to me at bnsaboutmovies@gmail.com.